When I first started taking drugs, it was for fun. I used to like getting high and having a laugh and hanging out with my friends. And uh, personally, I'd never had problems with things like peer pressure or being pressured into doing something to fit in with the crowd. Or I just liked I just liked to get high. Um, I found it really interesting when I hit rehab and they said to me, "You got a problem. You got a problem with drugs." I said, "Have I?" They said, "Yes and no." I said, "Well, elaborate on that, please. That yes or no." Well, uh, as an extension of your real issues, um, you're comfortable in drugs. And that's not a comfortable place to be for long term based on your understanding of yourself, Dean. That was pretty much somewhere around about the response. Oh no, okay. So I just use drugs because I like them. What's wrong with sticking picking my arm and getting a rush of heroin through my body, getting a bit of a chemical taste at the back of my bloody throat talking about it. What's wrong with that? Doesn't everybody get high and get out of it? And that's pretty stock standard. Oh no. Okay. And I was inquisitive, and I kept pushing it, in respect to. So, if drugs aren't my problem, and I was led to believe by society that drugs were the problem. Have a think about it. We are bombarded with issues of drug addicts um, through media, through other mediums of cocaine this, heroin this, marijuana this, antidepressants this, like all this information about drugs. We're the biggest company in Australia, the Australian government. They dispense all the illegal drugs that's on the criminal code. So drugs have been around for a hell of a long time. The Chinese dens with the opium, the coke dispensary years ago, have the chemist back in the 20s, and, early 1900s, pot. Like, drugs are not a new concept as far as acting upon and wanting. The new concept, which has appeared to me as far as marrying um, drug taking with your own personal self esteem, is that if people stay with drugs as the problem, then they have got a problem. I never ever use drugs consciously to escape a problem. Other than one time when I was in prison and a group of guys got together and raised a lot of money to buy an ounce of heroin, and I had this ex friggin' bloody heroin addict bloody girlfriend, Marilyn, um, who the money was signed out to, and I never seen her on another visit for about 2 years. So um, I was livid that she took the knock on us like that. Um, but I remember that afternoon I ran around all the blokes that get medication at night, the Mogadons and chloral hydrate and Valium and bloody barbiturates, phenobarbital, Turinol, throw a couple of Xanaxes slash Mandrax in there. And yeah, I wanted to get high. Um, but yeah, other than that, I never took drugs to escape anything because I didn't think I had anything to escape. Like, there's a lot of freedom in that. There's a hell of a lot of freedom when you're okay, even even in your worst moments. You know, you're right. You're sweet. You're good as gold. You know, I'm okay. Everybody else is a bad word I won't say, but I've heard it starts with C. I'm sweet. I'm good as gold. It's all yous out there. It's all the people. It's this. It's that. And drugs, they're not a problem. People define them as problem. People can't marry drug taking up and being stable. There's a lot of people that take drugs. It's an extremely recreational society as far as drug taking is concerned, and they're together. Well, they appear together. They appear competent. A lot of professionals take them. It's not always segregated to prisoners and people that do crime and so-called naughty or bad people. It's a very attractive thing for people to feel. Of course, it gets you high. It takes you away, and there's something about being taken away. There is something about being taken to somewhere else. That doesn't mean you got problems. No, not at all. When I first started taking drugs when I was a kid, I never had problems. Oh, I didn't know what problems were. Like I was all right. Just go and ask my mother and father; they'll tell you I wasn't doing anything out of the ordinary. Wasn't I? What? Oh my God! Yeah. Um, but what was out of the ordinary was the disregard, the self-centeredness, not having comprehension or conscious for what I was doing, and what I was doing was it's not acceptable, and the consequences for what I was doing. Now, here's a point: the consequences for what I was doing was, in the end, enough to motivate me. Well, it was partly enough to motivate me to get out of it. So the consequences for all behaviour will be pulled into account. We're going to be held accountable. So if you don't think that sweating the small stuff that hurts you, that annoys you, that frustrates you, that scares you, um, that you get all kinds of feelings in there, and little things that happen, fear, insecurity, uncertainty. If that stuff isn't sweated, if that stuff isn't of importance, um, And if it affects you when it comes up, and if it's disregarded, well, it's like having a broken arm, and you don't do anything about it. It's going to mend, but it's probably not going to mend straight. It'll probably mend in a way where it's not normally created and designed to be on a body, because it wasn't cared for, nor um, was it looked after. So coming back to what is the problem in drug taking is is the conditioning of drug taking and getting used to taking drugs to feel differently and not dealing with anything. You get into that framework, then you're in a lot of trouble. But yeah, Deepak Chopra, he makes the statement that drugs are just another way to get closer to God. You just want to get higher to the source, and it's a shortcut, and it's not sustainable over a long period of time for a lot of people, because in a drug fueled state with no comprehension of anything else about yourself, and no insight, and no work on yourself, yeah, that can be volatile. It can be angry. It can be hard to deal with. Um, yeah, being in that state, it's yeah, very vulnerable to outside forces to affect you and have an effect in respect to how you react to things, and yeah, probably a little bit too reactive in that state. It's important to have some kind of foundation where you can cope and deal with things and not be reactive, and listen. And so yeah, drugs, man, they're not the problem. If there is a problem in your life, which we continually create if we keep saying we have problems. But we need problems. Like problems are okay. Problems aren't going to kill you. Like it's important to have a secure openness to how you feel, that everything is okay. This too shall pass. As I said, the way I've done it is I've talked about it, and I talk about my problems and the little things and the big things. So yeah, if we are attempting to deal with the things that we need to deal with emotionally in our life, in our everyday existence, then if you want to have drugs after that, well, you have drugs, but they're not your problem. Any problems that you perceive that you've got, you've created it. You've created your problems through your thought processes, through the way you've been brought up. And if you think that's you, you're fooled. You're not. You're not your thoughts. We think that we are the thoughts. We're not the thoughts. We're the thinker of these thoughts. We are not the thought. If you think you're the thought, then every single thought that's come to you is yours. And that's not true. What thoughts have come to you has come to me too. I'm in the same realm as you and the next person beside you. Whatever's getting to you is getting to me and everybody else. Nobody gets out of jail with negativity that comes to them. Nobody. Or struggle or deal with your feelings or frustration or anger or love or closeness or you name it. We've all got it. at some point in our stage in our lives. We all go through it. That is separate to taking drugs. If you can separate it, you'll start dealing with what you have to deal with. And if you're really out of control taking drugs, well, that's a behaviour, and your desire will never be fulfilled there. It can't. It will cripple a soul, long term abuse, drug taking. But as I said, that's separate. That's separate to the problem. The problem's the end result. If you can get to what you have to get to before things spiral into places where you're scared they're going to spiral to, you've managed it. If you don't, you might think you have problems. Have a good day.